Have you ever felt someone slowly change with you, even though you didn't do anything different? One day, everything feels natural, and the next, their energy shifts, their replies slow down, and you're left trying to understand what went wrong, when maybe nothing actually went wrong at all. Welcome to Decode His Mind, the channel where we break down what's really going on beneath the surface of human behavior and relationships. In today's topic, we're going to explore why someone can suddenly feel distant even when the connection seems strong, and what those moments of silence, confusion, and emotional withdrawal actually mean beneath the surface. At first, you try not to think too much about it. You tell yourself it's nothing. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe it's temporary. But deep inside, you can feel a shift. Something doesn't feel right anymore. And that's when your mind starts filling in the blanks. Did I do something wrong? Did I get too close? Are they losing interest? These thoughts don't come gently. They come with pressure, with anxiety. Because when someone you care about changes how they show up, your mind doesn't stay relaxed. It tries to protect you. It starts preparing you for rejection, even when rejection hasn't actually happened. This is how the mind works. When uncertainty enters a connection, the brain rushes to find answers. But instead of choosing balanced explanations, it often jumps to the worst case scenario. Silence becomes distance. Distance becomes disinterest. And disinterest becomes an ending in your mind. Without realizing it, you start changing too. You pull back, not because you want to, but because you're trying to avoid getting hurt first. But stop for a moment and ask yourself something honestly. What if what you're seeing isn't the full truth? What if the distance you feel is not about losing you, but about something happening inside them that you can't see? Because one thing most people don't understand is this. Not everyone reacts to emotions the same way. Some people don't move closer when they feel something deep. Instead, they do the opposite. They step back. They become quiet. They create space. From the outside, it looks like disinterest. It feels like fading. It feels like you're being pushed away. But internally, something very different might be going on. There could be confusion, pressure, emotional conflict, a quiet struggle between what they feel and what they are afraid of feeling. And this is the dangerous part. Because how you respond in this moment can either bring understanding or create real distance. Most people react from fear. They panic, they overthink, they chase clarity, or they completely shut down to protect themselves. They mirror the distance they feel. If the other person pulls back, they pull back too. Walls go up, communication drops, and something temporary slowly turns into something permanent. Not because the connection was wrong, but because it was misunderstood. This is not weakness, it's human instinct. When something feels unstable emotionally, your first reaction is either to hold on tighter or to let go completely. But both reactions, when driven by fear, usually lead to the same outcome: disconnection. Now imagine being in that moment, a moment where you can't tell what's happening. You don't know if they are coming closer or slipping away. You don't know if their silence means they are thinking or leaving. And in that uncertainty, you decide to walk away first, just to protect yourself. On the surface, it feels like strength. It feels like self-respect. It feels like control. But what if that decision is based on a misunderstanding? What if you didn't walk away from rejection, but from something that was just starting to form? This is why awareness matters, because not all distance carries the same meaning. Some distance is intentional, some is emotional confusion, and some happens when feelings become too strong, too fast, and someone doesn't yet know how to handle them. If you can't tell the difference, you will keep reacting the wrong way, and that can cost you something real. Before assuming the worst, before letting fear take over, it's important to understand what's actually happening. Because what looks like someone pulling away might actually be someone trying to slow things down inside their own mind. A moment where emotions feel overwhelming. A moment where instead of moving forward, they pause to regain balance. If you misread this moment, you lose clarity. But if you understand it, everything changes. You start responding differently. You stop reacting from fear. You start seeing situations more clearly instead of emotionally. And that understanding is what changes everything next. Because beneath this behavior, there is a deeper pattern most people never notice. A shift that doesn't come from logic, but from emotional overload. It doesn't happen on the surface where you can easily explain it. It happens internally, where thoughts become heavier than actions and feelings become difficult to process. From the outside, it looks like hesitation. It looks like uncertainty. It looks like someone slowly losing interest. But inside, it's often something completely different. It can feel like things move too fast, like emotions became too real too quickly. One moment, everything feels comfortable and easy, and the next moment, there's a sudden emotional pressure that didn't exist before. Not because something went wrong, but because the connection started to feel real. And when that happens, the mind doesn't always respond with excitement. Sometimes it responds with caution. It starts questioning. It starts analyzing. It starts looking for space before things feel too intense to manage. For some people, closeness doesn't only feel good. It also triggers fear. Not obvious fear, but quiet internal fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of becoming too dependent. Fear of being emotionally exposed in a way they are not ready for. So instead of leaning in, they slow down, they pull back slightly, they reduce emotional expression. They create space, not as a rejection, but as a way to regain balance. From your side, it feels like distance. From their side, it feels like control. And this is where misunderstanding grows. One person looks for reassurance, the other looks for space. And without awareness, both start moving away from each other, even if the connection itself hasn't lost meaning. The important thing to understand is that this is often not a planned decision. It's not something they consciously choose in a clear moment. It's an automatic emotional response shaped by past experiences, fears, and internal patterns they may not even fully recognize. That's why they can't always explain it. Even they might feel confused about why they suddenly need space. They just feel it. And this is where most people make things worse. They take it personally. They assume it means they are not enough. They assume something is wrong with them. And from that fear, they either chase harder or completely withdraw. But pressure rarely brings clarity in this situation. It usually increases distance instead. When you understand this deeper layer, your perception changes. You stop seeing it as rejection, you start seeing it as emotional overload. A moment where someone is trying to manage feelings they are not fully ready to hold yet. This doesn't guarantee every connection will continue, but it does change how you interpret what is happening in real time. Because not every silence is an ending. Not every step back is a goodbye. And not every distance means loss. Sometimes it simply means something inside them is happening that they are still trying to understand themselves. And how you read that moment can shape everything that comes next. Because what feels like confusion on the surface is often, it doesn't feel warm or reassuring. In fact, it feels distant, cold, and unclear. But what you see on the surface is only a small part of what is actually happening underneath. Because people don't react strongly to things that mean nothing to them. They don't feel emotional tension over someone they don't care about. They don't experience inner conflict over a connection that holds no value in their life. When there is no attachment, there is usually no confusion either. Everything stays simple, neutral, and easy to walk away from. So when you start noticing sudden changes in someone's behavior, when their energy becomes inconsistent, when their presence feels unstable, it is not always a sign that their feelings are disappearing. In many cases, it can actually be the opposite. It can mean something inside them has become more active, not less.
This is the part most people miss because they only focus on what is visible.
They judge based on actions alone without understanding the emotional process happening beneath them. And because of that, they often reach the wrong conclusion. They assume distance automatically means disinterest. They assume inconsistency means care is fading. They assume silence means emotion is gone. But human behavior doesn't always work in such a simple way, especially when someone is not fully comfortable with deep emotional connection. For some people, stronger feelings don't create immediate closeness. They create internal conflict. On one side, there is attraction, comfort, and a sense that something real is forming. There is a pull toward the connection that feels natural and meaningful. But on the other side, there is resistance. A quiet inner voice that starts questioning everything, saying it might be too much, too fast, too close. This creates a push and pull inside them. One moment they feel connected, the next moment they feel the need to step back. One moment they are engaged, and the next they become harder to read. From the outside, this looks like mixed signals or emotional inconsistency. But internally, it is often just someone trying to manage emotions they are not fully prepared to sit with yet, because deeper emotions require openness.
They require trust.
They require letting go of control. And not everyone is ready for that level of emotional exposure, even if they genuinely care. So instead of moving forward smoothly, they slow down. They create space. They try to process what they are feeling before allowing it to grow further. This pause is not always a sign of lack of interest. In many cases, it is a sign that the connection has become strong enough to trigger emotional awareness they are still learning how to handle. And this is where people often make a critical mistake. They take this distance personally. They assume it reflects their worth. They think they did something wrong. And from that place of fear, they either chase for reassurance or completely shut down to protect themselves. Both reactions increase pressure, and pressure usually pushes the other person further into withdrawal. What gets overlooked is that if there was truly no feeling at all, there would be no need for confusion, no need for hesitation, and no need for emotional processing. Everything would remain simple and indifferent. But when something matters, it becomes complex. Emotions don't move in a straight line. They move in waves. They rise, they settle, they pause, and sometimes they pull back before moving forward again. If you only look at the surface, those waves look like instability. But if you understand them, you start to see a deeper emotional process unfolding. This awareness changes how you respond. Instead of reacting out of fear, you begin to observe with clarity. Instead of assuming the worst, you give space for understanding. And instead of forcing answers, you allow things to reveal themselves naturally over time. In that kind of space, pressure decreases. And when pressure decreases, emotional safety begins to form. For someone who struggles with closeness, that safety is important. It shows them that connection does not always come with urgency or expectation. It allows them to settle instead of retreating further.
And over time, that can help clarity return on its own, without force. But this doesn't mean every situation leads to reconnection. It doesn't mean every person will come back closer. What it does mean is that not every moment of distance is what it appears to be at first glance. Sometimes it is confusion. Sometimes it is emotional overload. Sometimes it is simply someone trying to understand their own feelings before they can express them clearly. And how you interpret that moment changes everything. Because if you misread it as rejection, you may walk away from something that wasn't finished. But if you understand it correctly, you give the situation room to unfold, instead of closing it too early. This is why your response matters more than the situation itself. If you react too quickly, you create pressure. If you assume too much, you create distance. If you act from fear, you lose clarity. But if you stay grounded, you give the connection a chance to show what it actually is instead of what it temporarily looks like. That is where emotional control becomes important. Not in forcing an outcome, but in not letting uncertainty decide your actions. Because when you stop reacting from anxiety, something shifts. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop withdrawing out of fear. You start responding with balance instead of emotion. And that balance creates something most people don't realize: space without pressure. In the end, not every moment of distance means someone is losing interest. Sometimes it simply reflects emotional confusion, internal conflict, or the need to process feelings that have become too intense to handle all at once. What looks like withdrawal on the surface can actually be a sign that something deeper is happening inside. The real lesson is not to rush to conclusions or react out of fear. Instead, it is to stay calm, observe with clarity, and respond with emotional balance. Because when you understand the difference between true disinterest and temporary emotional distance, you protect yourself from unnecessary misunderstandings and regret. And ultimately, the way you handle these uncertain moments decides everything, whether a connection fades due to pressure or is given the space it needs to reveal what it truly is. If this helped you see things more clearly, make sure you like this video, subscribe to *** Decode His Mind, ***, and hit the bell icon so you never miss what's coming next. And if this message resonated with you, comment the word clarity below so I know you're part of this journey.